Factory of the Future, People-Powered Output. Podcast focused on trends shaping the future of manufacturing. I'm Alexandria Bjork, your host, here with A.W. Schultz. Two thought leaders with a passion for people and manufacturing. Today and every episode, we are diving deep into the advancements, sustainable practices, and dynamic changes transforming how we produce everything.
And now welcome Alexandria Bjork and A.W. Schultz.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Factory of the Future. Happy New Year here from A.W. Schultz and myself, Alexandria Bjork. Today, we're going to be talking about the 8 wastes in manufacturing, a Lean Six Sigma concept. So A.W. is going to walk us through a little bit of the background on the 8 wastes, and then we're going to get into each of the different 8 wastes, a little bit about what they are, how to find them in your own workplace, and some examples. So hopefully you guys enjoy this conversation and helps you eliminate waste going into the new year. So A.W., kick us off.
Yeah, 8 wastes in the new year. I always like this to use this lean tool because it's a great way of opening up a conversation with groups on, what is waste, and maybe a lot of times it's sitting right in front of them or right on the floor of the factory floor, and they don't realize that it's causing inefficiencies.
Yeah. So
what we have is the 8 wastes, and it's nicely given the acronym. If we're going to go through it in the Tim Woods kind of ways of looking at waste, and we'll explain that as we go through it. But each if you spell out the term Tim Woods, that's each of the types of waste. And a small little fact on this: up until about 5 years ago, it was just Tim Wood. But the cliffhanger is there's actually been an extra one that been added, the S at the end of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first lead it off to give it back to Alexandria, and she's going to start with the first couple of them. And the way we're going to do this is I want to just explain it, and what are some different, how you can probably see it in your factory floor, and what can be done and some of the things about that. So Alexandria, if you want to start.
Absolutely. This is also a timely topic because going into 2026, professionally, my North Star is to eliminate waste. And as some of you may know, I work in a manufacturing company and directly am involved in the transportation team. So the first waste is transportation. Typically, we see this when we're transporting stuff back and forth and back and forth. So maybe you're shipping your raw materials from the West Coast to the East Coast to do some first layer of processing. And then from the East Coast, you're shipping it back to the center of the country for the final processing point. What that means is there's a lot of wasted transportation expense, energy, and time that is kind of baked into that whole coast to coast and back process. So one way to eliminate the waste in that scenario is either, maybe reconfigure where your warehouses are. This is something I see clients do all the time on the consulting side of the business, where we map out the best place to put the warehouses. So maybe instead it would be, raw materials from the West Coast, first layer of processing centrally organized in the center of the country versus the East Coast, and then dispersed from the center of the country to eliminate that leg of the transportation between the middle of the country and the East Coast. So that would be one way to do that. And you can identify this type of waste by doing a very simple network analysis and mapping out where your raw materials are coming and then where your finished products are going and any of the processes in between there. So that's transportation. Second, yep.
Oh, can I just
put
some notes into on that? So I'm looking at my presentation that when I present out the 8 kinds of waste, and the other things that just like Alexander said is it can also excessive movements of materials can also lead to product defects. And also and having unnecessary work that's involved, and it's greater wear and tear an exhaustion of those materials or that equipment.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I've seen that a lot in my career where the more we transport finished goods, the more likely that they're damaged in transport, and then that's just lost profit and lost activity. So great add on.
The other, just
Yeah.
sorry,
Yeah, go for it.
I geek out on this stuff. Some of the countermeasures, and Alexander talked about big manufacturers, big warehouses, but just in a normal, just one singular kind of a workflow. Countermeasures can also be like developing more of a U shape in a production line, or creating flow between the processes to to take away some of that non-value added movements. And I probably
even
to say about it.
No, even I think that's great conversation, and I think that's the whole point of this, right? Is to add our different perspectives. So to piggyback on what you said, even transporting materials within your warehouse could be identified waste, right? Like from the time they come in, maybe just touch it once and put it directly, have a storage location near where the materials are used versus having to constantly run forklifts back and forth, right? Because now you're putting extra hours on your forklift. That's increased maintenance, increased downtime for doing the maintenance, and increased risk of injury, right? Like people get run over by forklifts. I've been in warehouses and those forklift drivers are on a mission. So if you could eliminate some of their trips, it reduces your issues with your forklifts and also keeps the locations close to the inventory, close to where it's actually used in the manufacturing process. So those are a few different ways.
Are you familiar with the word Kanban? Have you heard that? Yeah. So that's also a different way of managing how your transportation is going back and forth. The Kanban is just really is a visual and means sign, but it can be used in different manners. I always think of a grocery store when you think of Kanban. Actually, that's where it started actually in Japan, on knowing when something needs to be filled or when it's not. And it's another way you can reduce transportation is adding those visuals out there.
Yeah. So those are a bunch of different ways to reduce waste in transportation frame of this Lean Six Sigma concept. The second would be inventory. So what a lot of people don't think about is overproducing inventory. And on one hand, maybe they're meeting their metrics for production or other, production efficiency and all these different things. However, by producing that excess inventory, you're wasting space, energy, and resources by either moving that inventory around or just not having space in general to store actually inventory that you need. In my case, and in my experience in my past life, one of the biggest ways that we experience with overproduced inventory is wasted assets. So in my industry, we would store our finished products on semi-trailers, which are not cheap to own, maintain, or store because you're having to rent yard space and etc. And we would run into this issue constantly where one of the facilities I was partnered with from a transportation perspective was always overproducing inventory because it was more efficient for their production line, right? They had to do less changeovers, et cetera, et cetera. But all of a sudden they had 3 to 5 to 10 trailers tied up for loads that aren't set to deliver for 3 to 5 days. So now that trailer is completely unusable with inventory that doesn't need to be shipped. And now we basically were having to go and add trailers to our fleet to accommodate this inventory issue. So that's another personal example of how overproduction of inventory. A.W., from your perspective and your industry experience, what have you seen in overproduced inventory?
I had this one project I was working on, and this company that I was working for had just acquired a couple factories, and they were going through a transition, which is not really their. I mean, transitions, kind of have some hiccups that can occur in this time. But one of the projects I had is that they had all these trailers, and this is refrigerated goods.
Oh.
And the problem we were having is that these reefers were running out of gas.
Yeah.
And then so it would destroy the whole lot. So what we had to do was we had to do like a value stream map and a spaghetti diagram showing where these inventories are of all these trucks in the lot. But that's kind of one of my biggest examples of where inventory can have substantial problems if it's not well addressed.
So what was the loss to the company? I mean, I would assume that's in the six digits, if not seven.
It was in the six. No, it was approaching six digits. But
Approaching six.
It wasn't a
Okay.
long-term deal, but it just all of a sudden they had acquired another factory with all these different trailers, and they had to put them somewhere. And
Yeah.
this one factory had a lot of space that we could put them at. So, but we walked into a situation where they weren't prepared for it, and I certainly you could say that. Did they perform any kind of risk management? Well, they didn't necessarily address that problem, and needless to say, it got fixed really quick. I mean, it was a couple of visits from the CEO, and a lot of resources brought in to help fix that. But we got it fixed.
So again, there's an inventory management problem and a definite waste in terms of finished goods products. And also from a sustainability standpoint, when material is wasted, it's not only what it costs to make the good, but it's also all of the energy like wasted, right? Like in sustainability, and when we're talking about, getting EcoVadis certified and all this other stuff, wasted energy contributes to your either excellent sustainability standards or your deficiency in sustainability practices. So really there's a lot of layers of waste that you can really look at and think about, from kind of an over large picture down to like literally wasted product, right? So it's everything up in town to that wasted product.
Yeah, it also costs to get rid of it.
Right. Now you're paying for disposal. That's a good point. Last two. So motion for me anyway. So wasted motion. I'm going to use a non-factory example because this is a home example of how I set up my house. So in my kitchen, I typically place everything. I organize my kitchen where I'm doing the activities, right? So this is an example of a wasted motion. Like, I hate having to walk to one end of the kitchen when I typically, for my items, when I typically prepare stuff. So like with the one zone where I do my pet's food is right there. My pet's bowls are right there. So my dog's refrigerated food is in the refrigerator behind me. My cat's bowls for their canned food is right in front of me. Their canned food is down below, and their dry food is right below. So everything is in that location. I'm not constantly running around my kitchen going into all the different zones to get all these different items. It's right there. So the same concept could be applied to manufacturing, trucking, whatever it is. Place items where they're used is really the concept. And also look at where you're bending down or reaching for things. Like even when you talk about your desk setup should really be ergonomically set up where you don't have to reach for things. Like I'm also a big habit person, big James Clear guy, and I keep my hand lotion, my eye drops, and my lip balm at my desk because then it reminds me to do that, and they're all very easily within reach. Same with my headphones, pens, all the other stuff that I would use at a desk. So those are some ways that you can think about eliminating motion in your personal life. A.W., you might have more experience in that realm with your manufacturing and project experience. So what do you think about motion?
Well, when I do trainings on planning and scheduling, that is the biggest discussion that I bring up. And you think about craftsmen or mechanics or other people that are doing these things. Motion is one of the most, we'll say at the top of the list of if we're trying to reduce this waste for a technician to maximize his efficiencies. Mm-hmm. Some of these assets, they're huge assets, huge units that when we shut them down, we're not producing anything. So
right.
If we're having to wait for a craftsman to come, there's immediate waste that productivity is not happening. So that's always something that we're looking at. It's called wrench time. Is time on tool is what we want to maximize.
Right.
So to me, that's one of the biggest examples. And it's funny how they all kind of mingle in together.
Yeah.
These examples on it, and when you start applying, this is why it's a lean tool, because once you start understanding it, then you start picking away the tools from the toolbox, that you can bring forward onto this. Visualization, 5S in a project, understanding the wrench time that goes into it, and incorporating those teams to talk about what can we do to maximize our efficiencies. But yeah.
Well, it was you who taught me about the kitting for mechanics.
Yeah.
Right? Like having everything kitted. And then even in this conversation, I'm thinking about the mechanics that we have on our team who are under trailers. How much time do they waste probably rolling out from underneath or whatever to go grab their tools versus maybe having like a wheelie tool cart where they could have everything right there with them at all times, laid out in a 5S manner. So that way they don't have to get up, get down, get up, get down. They get all the tools they need, all the parts they need, put that right there for them while they're working on whatever part of the trailer or tractor they're working on.
Yeah.
So
And
I'm gonna bring that back. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so that's motion. Waiting. We talked about waiting recently when we had a certain guest on the show. For right now, his name is escaping me. I don't have our notes pulled up, but when we were talking about waste, he was the king of eliminating wait time at the bottling manufacturing lines, right? Like he had done 75 lean projects. I remember all of the stuff about him. I can't remember his name right now. So he identified different areas in the manufacturing and bottling process at PepsiCo where they were waiting. So by eliminating that waiting period, you're improving productivity. You're eliminating the wasted time that people are otherwise sitting around waiting. My personal experience with this is my computer. So my work computer, I am about to get into this project today, and it's going to take me 50% of the time is going to be waiting for my computer to paste the data that I need into the spreadsheet. And I'm going to sit there and watch it go like this for lines at a time. And it's going to be so much fun. I can't wait. So waiting for computers to operate, faster machinery, that task would be done in 50% of the time. What is your experience in waiting, A.W? Like what are some of the examples you've come across?
Well, my other example was also that motion, that if we're shutting down a unit or waiting for production to come up, and those assets can be people too. There's a cost to that when they're just waiting around for something to get done.
Yeah.
I like when you're driving down the road and you go to that road construction site and you see all the guys sitting there and standing and they're waiting. To me, I used to think that just means they had a poor plan that was put together, and that still might be the case. But sometimes you have to, cost justify, like, is it okay to have 5 guys waiting versus bringing in a crane that's got a substantially more value to it? Or kind of what's that balance on it? So sometimes I kind of tap the brakes on that, but often I still look at construction sites and I see guys holding shovels, or you see 5 guys watching 1 guy dig.
That definitely, it's not a lean operation, that's for sure. But one thing that I did learn about the construction piece is part of it is safety, right? So like, I get that part. Like if somebody's in a manhole, somebody has to be outside the manhole watching that guy to make sure he's okay, or that girl to make sure she's okay. That we get. Just want to make that clarification or call that out as a not a dig on construction folks. We're all punny today. But yeah, so that's waiting. So A.W, you're moving on to the last 4 here. Let's dial in the second half here.
So over processing. This is doing more work that is needed. And this includes using high precision equipment when maybe it doesn't need to be needed, or or running more analysis or quality checks than are needed. I like this example because I'm going to go back to Elon Musk, and that was one of the things that when he built his factory in Texas, that he was going after is eliminating the over processing. And some of the examples, it was, engineers said, there's safety protocols that I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
he challenged the quo on that. And I remember or if you've, you buy furniture and you have to assemble it. And now every time I have to put something together, I'm looking, why do I need 5 screws when 2 will work? And they might, maybe there's reasons, but just the idea of just challenging that is worth the conversation about, is it needed? Because that's just extra motion and time to do something.
My biggest pet peeve is all of the unnecessary packaging in the shoe industry. Can you even summarize? Like, it has been a pet peeve for about 20 years. Like, I remember being in my teens being like, this is so unnecessary. Like, wrapping the shoelaces. Shoelaces get dirty. Nobody is keeping their shoelaces perfectly clean. And honestly, how are the shoelaces getting damaged in transport? They're not. No shoelaces are getting damaged. They don't need to be wrapped. So that's a manufacturing process, but it's also material waste. And it's, again, anti-sustainability because of all of the additional production, transportation, and effort that went into making that safety packaging for the shoes. Like, I could understand some of this shoe packaging, but like, I think the amount of packaging in shoes, like, or even when I get my Fabletics orders, why do I need the tissue paper in between my leggings? What purpose does that serve? And how much could Fabletics save if they eliminated the tissue paper that's separating the fold of my leggings? It's completely unnecessary. Cut it.
So this is the lean tool of SIPOC. So, and the idea is always, the countermeasure is always have the customer's standpoint in mind. I'm just going to read my notes here. Always have the customer's mind before starting work. Produce to lead the quality and expectation that the customers desire, and make only the quantities needed. And I think that addresses some of your thoughts on the food industry, or the
shoe and clothes, like basically any e-commerce. One company I think does a great job of this is Farmer's Dog. So Farmer's Dog sends an insulated box, which I will attest. My delivery came, I didn't realize that food was still good 5 days later, which is impeccable, incredible, great packaging to Farmer's Dog. Shout out to you guys. But they put nothing other than the food, the dry ice, and one additional piece of cardboard, which I still don't quite understand the purpose of the cardboard. I don't know what that adds to, but it's the dry ice package, the food in an insulated box. That to me is the most efficient, effective packaging that I've ever seen out of an e-commerce business. And I think a lot of other companies could learn to model the Farmer's Dog approach and like, don't put unnecessary packaging. Because then for the consumer, we've just now got to put more stuff in recycling and more stuff in garbage and take the garbage out more when we get packages. And it's not good for the environment.
Yeah.
So.
You're right. Yeah, the environment too.
That's my rant. Sorry.
We're ranting today on the wastes. Overproduction. So this is pretty self-explanatory. Making more than what's needed. And it's sometimes it's needs to be more of a mentality of just in time versus just in case. And this is often a planner's dilemma, is like, how much inventory should we make? Now, certainly getting products on the shelves and not having shelves with product not on it is a no-no. But building up a polling system is kind of the lead tool to countermeasure to that.
I actually have a little objection to the just-in-time manufacturing. I feel like after COVID, there were a lot of people who got caught with their pants down. because they were, using it just in time. Then you had the Suez Canal, you had all the stoppages from China. I can't say that I fully support that. Like, out of all of the eight wastes, like on that one, I'm like, I don't know. Is it really? Because how can is the supply chain fully dependable? Are we prepared? Like, even with tariffs, a lot of people are loading up before the tariffs went into place, right? Like, you have to do a cost benefit analysis on that type of stuff. And I still think that, like, maybe just understanding what the right safety stock is, right? I also think about that at home, like personally from an inventory standpoint. Like, I don't buy a bunch of home products. Like, why would I buy two toilet bowl cleaners today when one of them will take me 1 year or so to use? Now I've given that company my money, and that money that I would have saved would be, worth significantly less, a year from now or whatever. So anyway, that's another counter argument on the inventory at the home.
Well, let's look this way. If you've seen overproduction, you ever go to Dollar Tree or Dollar General, and you see some name brand products in there that are a lot less. They're having to sell them, and because they overproduced.
I had no idea. I was like, what the heck is this?
Yeah.
That's where they come from. No way. Nice.
Different ways of countermeasures for overproduction is one, understanding the tack time. So how long something takes to make. Like you said, understanding your work in process, and creating a pull system, or like we talked about a Kanban.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So our next one is defect. A defect is something that's broken.
Yeah.
Now, I won't go a whole lot into that because it can be anything. But this often can be done by, if you're having to rework or scrapping the product, or this is what happens. This is where that cost comes from. Defining a defect is when it's something that loses its functionality to operate to its design purpose.
Yeah.
And I've seen that many times in the factory, that they're using broken tools or other things that one could be dangerous to the safety of the area, or it's not used to its intended use. So
when I think of defect, I think of like defective products too. Right? Like,
yeah, I should have gotten
like, yeah, sorry. To me, that's the obvious one. You went with the next layer of detail, which I think is more brilliant to bring up, because a lot of people don't think about that. But a lot of waste in defect finished goods.
Some countermeasures for defects is, one, understanding what defects are, and that's a whole other. I've got 10 of them actually that when I do trainings on that I go into. But first, look for the most frequent defects. Focus on them. This is a way of eliminating. Yeah. Second, design a process to detect abnormalities. So this is going back to your products as they're being produced. This could be a quality check, understanding what is your defect rates. The next one is design a process to start abnormally. So kind of what I said. And lastly, use standardized work. So having good trained staff that knows what is between good and bad. Guess what happens when you have too many defects? Now you overproduce something. You got to transport it. There's extra motion. It's just all the defects. It all comes into that.
Yep.
But I think most of our viewers know what something's broken or not. But asking that question about, this is a type of waste. So the last one, and I said this is a brand new one, straight off the 5-year shelf, is, and this was added. I don't know who added it, by the way. Skills and non-utilized talent is the 8th waste. And this is, you think about Toyota production systems, or the Toyota way, and this is kind of where that comes down to. Yeah. It also fits into, when I always talk about Industry 5.0, about understanding the human-centric approach, underutilizing people and their talent. And, this waste, what happens is, one, it reduces the human's potential. And I think before we started the show, you were giving an example that, just because you're doing one job doesn't mean you want to do it for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And
just because someone's proficient at something doesn't mean you're maximizing their potential.
Yeah. My notes here are, this waste occurs when organization separates the role of management from employees. In some organizations, management's responsibility is planning organizations, controlling and innovating the production process. The employee's role is simply follow orders and execute the work as planned. By not engaging the frontline workers' knowledge and expertise, it is difficult to improve processes. And I think we've gone over a whole bunch of different ways in our different podcasts about utilizing talent and maximizing efficiencies through the use of unutilized talent.
Yeah.
So transportation, inventory, motion, waiting, overprocessing, overproduction, defects, and skills are the 8 wastes. And if you want to remember what they are, they spell it to Tim Woods.
Yeah. Nice. Are we clocking out?
That is our podcast on the 8 wastes. And we're out of here like finished goods. This is Factory of the Future, and we are out of here like finished goods. Stay tuned for our next episode of Factory of the Future, where we're exploring groundbreaking techniques and behaviors that are reshaping industrial landscapes. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review and help others discover the cutting-edge insights transforming manufacturing as we know it.